Happiness is beautiful, it's a kind reality. Happiness is the highest good, happiness is free. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.
Welcome to the Happiness Show. This is George Ortega. I'm here with Lionel Ketchen, and we're here to talk about happiness because happiness is, always has been, and always will be the point of it all. Okay, tonight we're going to be talking about happiness and kindness. And Lionel, why don't you start us off with explaining kind of like how kindness and happiness are related?
Well, that's an interesting thought, George. I think they're related because, I think kind people generally are happy, or at least want to be happy, and they treat others kindly because they have an aspect of that within themselves, or at least they're in touch with that. And probably one of the more important things we would like to get out to the audience today is that happy people, we're saying kind people are generally happy, but I'm going to make the statement that happy people may really find themselves being kinder and being more appreciative to others because they're in touch with that same aspect within themselves. And I like to think that unless you have something, you can't give it away. And kindness may be one of those traits.
I think you're right, yeah, because like what happens, if we're like as happy as we want to be, if we're very happy, then it's like we're not in a state of need. We have what we want. And that just puts us in a state of wanting to share it and give it. And kindness, I mean, kindness is like, when you think about it, like if we're going to be kind to other people, what does everyone want most,
Happiness.
Sure. So yeah, just helping them to become as kind, through kindness, helping them to become as happy as possible.
As we're beginning this segment on kindness, I think of a movie, Shangri-La, what was that movie?
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean.
The plane goes up.
Lost Horizon?
Lost Horizon.
Right.
Perfect. Good for you, George. So in Lost Horizon, the crew goes out. They were flying over, I guess, maybe the Tibetan mountains or some, snow-covered mountain range, and they crash, and they get taken to this Lost Horizon where they enter from a snowy mountain, inhospitable area into, Garden of Paradise. It's warm, the birds are singing, and what a stark difference. But what I liked about that show is when the head, or I guess the spiritual leader there, reminded me of the Dalai Lama type of person. And the guy who was the head of the flight, and the guy who was brought to this particular, situation, he says to him, you know what the most important thing is, he goes, and I'm listening, and he says, kindness. Kindness is the most important thing there is. I said, wow. I would like to think of it as happiness, but I'll accept kindness, because I think if you're kind, then happiness follows. And I think that the two probably are different names of the same thing, very possibly.
Yeah, and I think he may have actually been referring to more so our interactions with others.
Yes.
Because, if we focus on being kind to everyone, and everyone focuses on being kind to everyone else, then that's going to make it so much easier for all of us to be so much happier.
I think you're right, and I think, for example, things perpetuate themselves, and a bad could perpetuate, and all right, I'm not going to really call it bad, but all of a sudden on the highway, there's this new game that's played, and I feel like by talking about it, I may be promoting it, but nevertheless, the game is that somebody needs to get off at an exit, and you're in the right-hand lane. So they speed up and pass you to get off on the exit. Now, they can just so much more easily slow down a little bit, get behind you, and then get off. But it's almost an act of offensiveness for the sake of it. So it's like the opposite of kindness. It's like just doing something to either irritate the other person or cause a dangerous situation, or at least look like you're the center of attention. Whatever the reason, it's not a practical thing. It's not a good thing, and it has has no benefit to society whatsoever. But yet, why do we do these things? The thought I have is that kind of, maybe the opposite of kindness in that act, really, the problem here is another word that comes up to me in conjunction with this, and it's respect. And I know we'll be talking about respect, but I think kindness is integrated with respect here. I think the two are very important words.
Yeah, it's respect, and I think it's also sometimes we have to choose between kindness and competition, because like when we're being kind, it's like we're cooperating with others, we're working together with others on this common goal of everyone being as happy as we can be. In the instance you cite with the car on the highway, that person's in a competitive mode. He wants to win. He wants to like get his way regardless of the needs or comfort of other people. So that's one really good thing about kindness. It focuses us on the fact that, happiness isn't just about ourselves. The more we devote our attention to the happiness of others also, the easier it's going to be for us to be much happier.
And sometimes that's the last thing we see. And you've raised a very interesting point. Cooperation and competition, we live in a very competitive society, and competition is looked on as a good thing. It's good in sports. The really competitive good players make all the money, right? But still, the team that wins is the team that has a number of good players in it. Cooperation and competition, if we could integrate that a little bit more so that cooperation is understood better, I think it'll be more beneficial for all of us. One of the ways to do that is to understand kindness, because when one person treats another with kindness, isn't that wonderful? And it's a sign of respect. It's acknowledging the other person. In many ways, it's one of the things we live for, because an act of acknowledgement of acknowledging the other person is a very high act, and one we don't do enough of.
Yeah. And then actually that leads to the next question. I mean, if kindness is so useful, so powerful in helping us to feel happier, because, when we're being kind, we know that we're being good, and that feels good to be good.
Yes.
So we know it feels good to be kind, and we know it's good for others. So then the question becomes, if it's so useful, then why aren't we kinder more often?
I wish I can remember the person who said it. I didn't make this up, but there's a thought that goes something like this. Good people are not always happy, but happy people are always good. And now that you're introducing goodness into kindness, which is another aspect of goodness, the world doesn't really understand that to achieve goodness, to see it, to feel it, to taste it, one of the ways is to experience happiness. Because when one tastes happiness, one begins to treat others better, because they really realize we all want the same thing. So if you want happiness, and I'm in touch with the fact that, I want happiness and it's important to me, I also understand that it's important to you. And so the competition lessens, the cooperation deepens, and we get one step closer towards goodness. But I think, as the saying goes, not all good people are happy. What we're saying here is I've met a lot of people that are really good people, and they do good things, but they get burned out because they say, oh my God, I've been doing these wonderful things for people, and they don't even say thank you to me. There's no acknowledgement of what I'm doing, so they get burned out. If they were happy, they wouldn't get burned out. They could be happy and let goodness flow from happiness, and they wouldn't get burned out in the same way that a good person who was trying to find happiness by being good did it. And I think that's, to introduce this thought into religion. Religion has always taught goodness. It is the highest thing that religion teaches is goodness and the reward for goodness. But if it understood that happiness is a human mission in life, then goodness can flow from happiness, rather than trying to find your happiness by being a good person and not realizing the state of happiness for yourself.
Yeah, I think again, in trying to answer why we're not kinder more often, I I think it is that we don't understand kindness in relation to happiness enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us believe that happiness is something to be won, and like so much of life, it's something to be won at the expense of other people. In other words, if we're to win, other people have to lose. That's, unfortunately, so much of our education is based on that philosophy. It's academic education, sports. If there's going to be a winner, there has to be a loser. Now, with happiness, it's the total opposite.
Opposite, yes.
To win at happiness means that you're helping others to win just as well. And again, with kindness, focusing on that, rather than competing with others, rather than trying to win over them, by trying to help them win, that's going to help them become happier, and of course help one become happier.
A good point you make, George, and I think that kindness comes from good self-esteem, and I think that good self-esteem is the foundation of happiness. So when you have somebody who's a little bit rough and gruff and doesn't treat people well, it really is more of a sign of them than it is of you or me. It's really not how they're treating you. It's what they're thinking or saying to themselves that really you have to look at. So it may be a self-esteem issue for them.
That's very important, yeah, because then that brings us to the question, well then, if kindness is so important to happiness, then to whom is it most important to be kind?
Well, the answer for me would be certainly to yourself, and then to everyone else that you meet, is what I think.
Right, but also I think if we want to key in a bit more, so it's who are the people that need the kindness the most? They're the people who are the least happy. Because, if a person's very happy, a person has what they want. If others are kind to that person, it really doesn't matter that much, because the person, is where that person wants to be. But you have someone who's not very happy, then kindness has become very important to that person. Kindness has kind of become like a bridge between that person and the world. So in terms of, if we want to think about kindness in relation to other people, sometimes it's very easy to be kind to people who are happy, who are enjoying themselves. It's a bit more difficult to be kind to someone who is having a rough time, who's kind of in a space where we may not feel so comfortable. But if we're going to be if we're going to use kindness as much as possible, those are the kind of people that really need it the most.
As you're saying that, George, I think of I hate to use, well, you got to start with somebody, and it isn't loaded against this person, but let's just take, for example, in somebody's family, they have a grandfather or a grandmother that's a little ornery, just snaps at people, and they're not in a good mood a lot of the times. Let's just say, and I'm making this up, if you have somebody who relates to that person and sort of turns off because of the other person, that person sort of creates this shell around them and keeps people away. And as you're talking, I see how right you are, because the person with the shell actually needs to be treated kindly in order for them to dissolve the shell, in order for them to understand that that action isn't getting them what they want. And they probably are very lonely, and that's why they're feeling that way. That's why they're acting that way. But the very opposite would probably be true. They're probably saying to themselves, I don't get any love, the world hates me, and they're sort of creating their own reality, so to speak, by having these, unkind views. So being unkind creates a harsher reality, a harsher world for one to live in. And along comes a happier person. It might be a 3-year-old who'll put their arms around their grandmother or grandfather and say, I love you, Grandma, I love you, Grandpa, or something to that effect, and everything starts dissolving. And so that kindness or that love that the little kid showed the grandparents could actually be a melting point for them to understand that, hey, this isn't working for me. By being miserable, by being unhappy, I'm not experiencing even what's right in front of me for me to enjoy. So sometimes I think, as you say, the people who need it the most are the people who are unhappy. So you raise a very good point. They're in a sense, kindness is like a sword at that point. It could be wielded to do some very wonderful things in life with certain people.
Yeah, you're so right, because as you were saying, sometimes we get into a state of mind that isn't very pleasant and isn't very friendly, and we're absorbed with negative thoughts and feelings. And someone, does even a small kindness to us, smiles, how are you doing, all of a sudden it refocuses us. It kind of like shifts our attention from whatever we were thinking about and worrying about or whatever we're fretting about, and just says, wait a minute, this is what it's about. This person has just taught me something that, or reminded, a person of something. I guess that leads us to a next consideration. What are like the kinds of kindnesses, and sometimes these are like small kindnesses, that are most important?
Well, George, I'm going to relate something that just happened to me about 2 hours ago. I was in my office this morning before coming down to meet you to do the show, and I noticed some beautiful flowers in a flower pot that were delivered to me from a florist with a little note, and that was nice. That was a kind gesture to see something like that. And a little note, and it happened to be from Amy Branch. It just said Amy, but I called Amy Branch in California, and she said, yes, that's from me. And all it was thank you, thanking me for, I think, being me. I don't know, but just a real heartfelt thank you. The flowers were nice, but the thought was fantastic. And when I'm here talking with you, the kindness was really the beauty. That was really the beauty of it. And people don't have to do these kinds of things, but I must say, when people do take the extra time to show kindness, what are they really showing? They're showing appreciation, I suppose. And I think that that's the essence of humanity. That's the essence of being a human being, is to show appreciation. And how do we show that with anything? What other things have we got to show with? We say love. But isn't kindness a form of love? Isn't it? It may be a very high form of love, because in a sense it doesn't want anything from the other person. So I just wanted to make that point. So sometimes giving a gift or giving something that reminds the other person how much we appreciate them is a physical way of showing appreciation, kindness, thoughtfulness, those things.
Yeah, and sometimes it's actually even more simple than appreciation. Sometimes it's simply a matter of acknowledgement. I mean,
Yes.
we walk into a room, we see someone, simply acknowledging the person, greeting them, using their first name, hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to, we're significant to ourselves, to a certain extent, to the extent that we're significant to others. I mean, others remind us of our significance. We're doing, let's say we're absorbed in something, somebody comes in and says hi, it reminds us of that connection to humanity, of that importance that all of us have as individuals. So yeah, just the simple smile, the simple hi, how are, I mean, actually, you can go beyond just the simple greeting to like a heartfelt how are you, because how are you can be said in a very matter-of-fact manner, or it could be said with a bit more intent, with a bit more caring. So yeah, in terms of like the simple kindnesses, just taking the time to really just connect with the person on an emotional level and acknowledge them and demonstrate one's concern for their well-being.
Very, very simple, very good thought. And the thing that people don't realize is when you're saying hello to somebody, many times it's somebody you're gonna be seeing. Maybe just for one or 2 seconds, but you may see them every single day in the hall or so. So if you're going to see them every day of your life, you're doing yourself a favor by being kind to the other person. In actuality, right?
Oh, yes. So, I mean, because it's like blessings in general. What we give to the world, we get back.
Yes, yes.
So, and we're also it's possible to set a pattern. Let's say you have a boss or even just an employee in an office. If he sets the pattern of greeting people and being kind in small ways to people on a regular basis, people are going to accept that as the standard, at least when it comes to relating to that person. Who knows, maybe in other areas of the office, maybe things aren't as friendly or as kind and all. But, for one to just establish kindness as the routine of one's life in interacting with others, that others are going to catch that, and it's so pleasant for everyone that others will adopt it and mirror
Absolutely. Now, George, let me ask you a question. I agree with you that kindness is important, but I'm going to raise the thought and the question, let's say somebody listening right now to us would say, okay, kindness, you guys sound like you're on the money. But what they're going to express is, yeah, but if I show kindness to certain people, that's giving them a signal that you could take advantage of me. Isn't that a thought behind many people's mind when they're thinking about whether to be kind or not?
That is such a good point. Yeah, because we're going back to the question of why aren't we kind more often. I think you hit on it. Sometimes it is risky to be kind. To be kind is to be vulnerable in a sense.
Yes.
But, people can learn. One can be kind to another and sense that that the other person is perhaps taking advantage of it, just seeing it as a weakness when it isn't. And one can simply assert oneself. Yes, I can be very kind to this individual, but I still can assert my needs and really defend, my happiness. Sure.
Now, I like to think that if you use kindness with balanced with being happy, then you're coming out of a balanced state of mind. And so you're less likely to be thrown over by other people's reactions or thoughts or even some snide remarks that they may have to say. And remember not to take it personally. Remember that what they're reflecting is something about them, not necessarily about you. And if this is what they think, then that's perfectly okay for them to think it. But you have to ask yourself, is this kind of thinking benefiting them in their life? That's what you have to ask the question. And a lot of people who are very rude, crude, and mean, all you have to do is look at them and their life and say to yourself, thank God I'm not them.
Yeah.
And that's all you've got to do. Especially even the driver who cuts you off. You say to yourself, I wonder what his lifespan may be. Thank God I'm not him. So these people actually turn out to be their own worst enemies. So in a sense, they're already paying the price, and you don't have to impose any kind of judgment, any kind of penalty. They're doing it for you.
Right, and you were relating also kindness to happiness, emphasizing the fact that it's important to be happy while being kind. And I think that's a good example because, kindness doesn't mean that we have to be martyrs.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that, that we have to suffer our kindness. If we try to help each other as much as we can, there comes a point where we have to say to ourselves, well, my happiness is important also. Our happiness is important as the other person's. So while we try, while we through compassion just try to be kind to people who are in a negative state of mind, who perhaps haven't learned the value of happiness and kindness and friendliness, while we try to help them as much as possible, it's very important to stay focused on our own happiness while doing it. Because another point is that to the extent that we stay focused on our own happiness, that happiness is going to be communicated. In other words, a person might say to himself, oh, this person is just being kind and it's an affectation and he doesn't really feel it and all. But when it's coming from a person who's genuinely, expressedly happy, that communication comes through and that person says, hey, wait a minute, this person is happy, it's genuine.
True, and somehow we have this guided system within us where we can tell what's real and what's not real. I mean, you pretty much sense it out with people, or at least you will very shortly. So I think we have to pretty much accept people for what they are on the surface and then let them prove themselves wrong later on. It's really the better way to go, because then otherwise we're just slamming a door on everything. There's no opportunities left, and we can't get closer to others. We can't we live in a world of phones and emails and lots of communication, but no communication between humans. And here we are, at least you're a human being and I'm a human being. I'm looking at you, we're talking, we're relating. No emails going back and forth. We're really physically here taking time to talk to one another. And I think that's a benefit for others, that if they could physically get out and meet people, then they could exhibit their humanness. And I think that maybe another aspect of kindness is that in expressing kindness to another person, you are expressing the fundamental goodness of humanity in kindness, in that one thing. So We have to. You know, it reminds me of the bumper stickers, random acts of kindness, senseless acts of beauty. We need to practice kindness. It benefits us. It benefits us. And so many people who've told me, Lionel, I'm unhappy, I can't get happy. I know it's a decision, I know it's a choice, I can't do it. What I tell them is, express kindness to others. Go out and do something for others. They're so tied up in themselves that kindness would be their therapy.
Okay, yeah, that's good. We've got we've got a couple more minutes left. I wanted to return to actually the point we began with.
Sure.
It's the idea that kindness isn't just about being kind to other people. We also have to be kind to ourselves.
Yes.
So that yeah, in these last couple minutes, what does it mean to be kind to ourselves?
I think to respect oneself, to feel love towards oneself, to love yourself, to be genuinely happy, and this may sound radical, but to be selfish. Now, a lot of people misinterpret selfishness. That means to be you, to take care of you. It does not mean to be self-centered. It means to include you in myself, to be so selfish that I could be kind to you as well as me, because I can include you in my quest to be loving. And I think, to me, it needs to start from me, because if I can't give it to you, that means I haven't got it. So I need to have it, I need to possess it in order for me to give you some.
Right. I think for one to be kindest to oneself, I think one has to just recognize the importance of happiness. I mean, that's what we want. That's what everyone wants. And like to the extent, I mean, our kindness to ourselves is like giving ourselves whatever we need to really be happy, to just, to understand the happiness, to maintain the feeling. And then, once we've succeeded, once we're really kind to ourselves, then we have it to give to others.
And George, if we were really kind to ourselves, we'd find out everything we can about happiness, because I think that's the greatest act of kindness one can give oneself, is to find out about happiness and live it.
Okay, yeah, that's great. All right, well, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. In the future, we'll explore other topics designed to help us better enjoy life. Be good, think well, feel very happy, and I hope you'll join us again next week here on The Happiness Show.
Happiness is powerful. It's our underlying need. Happiness is why we live each day. Happiness is destiny. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.